the land acquisition process. Continue. So if I haven't met you, hello. Looking forward to meeting you in person one day. But I do see a number of names that I know on here. So if I do know you, hello. And then what I wanted to say was two things in all transparency. I am having some issues with my cable right now. Unfortunately, it's been on and off. But if I get cut out, I'm gonna join on my phone. I have it sitting here waiting, so no need to panic. Keto's got the slides. He'll throw them up, and we'll keep going. And just give me a second to come back on. So sorry about that. The cable guy is coming next week to get me together. But and then before we actually start the slides, I wanted to introduce a couple of people because we have some people in the room that are experts in this. One is Miss Sarah. Sarah, do you want to say hello really quickly? And I'll go on mute while my neighbors cut their lawn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Bohi. I work with the Detroit Land Bank's project team, mostly with applications in districts 3, 4, and 5. So if you submit an application to the DLBA through the projects portal, you would be coming through the projects team.
And can you hear the lawnmower now, Keto?
It's not bad.
That's not bad. Okay. Sarah also is a part of the land-based projects team that was formed a few years ago to kind of address some of the issues that people were having with purchasing and kind of connect the dots. And so she, representing the land bank, along with folks from building safety engineering and environmental department, folks from the planning department, have been meeting to make sure that this process is going smooth, and here and then getting input from us as gardeners to see, where the hiccups are. And so I just want to let you know that people are behind the scenes working on these things to make sure this process is smooth. Another person I just wanted to introduce really quickly is Erin Bevel. I think she's on mute, and probably, I don't know if you're in a good place to say hi, Erin, but Erin is one of the co-founders. She's a board member at Detroit Black Community Food Security Network and one of the co-founders of the Black Farmer Land Fund. And so are you able to come off mute, Erin?
You know me well, T. I'm in my car, but I'm here, of course, to support you, and always, wanting to know more as much as I can about this process so we can continue to support Detroit Black farmers. So thank you guys for doing this. And if you want to know more about the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund, of which T is also a co-founder, check us out at DetroitBlackFarmer.com. I'll throw it in the chat. Thanks, y'all.
All right. And I'll be talking a little more about that as we wrap up, but I just wanted to introduce those two people because they're some of my co-conspirators in this work here. All right. So we are here to talk about purchasing land for your garden. Do me a favor. I just want to see who's in the room really quickly. How many people, put a 1 in the chat if you have already gone through the process of purchasing land in the city to some extent. Have you already done this? Let me see who's in the room. Pull up this chat box. Yep, Ingrid says she has. You can either raise your hand or say yes in the chat. All right, Ashaki's gone through this process. Yep. KT, oh, I didn't see your face. Let me introduce KT. Also has been working on this very vigilantly within the community around the incinerator, their old incinerator, doing some land justice work over there. She's been walking people through this process. So Sarah, Erin, KT, or anyone else who has expertise on this as we're going through this, please feel free to chime in, or if you have questions as we're going through this, please feel free to, we're a small bunch, we can come off of mute, and if that's okay with you, Keto, and just, get in the nitty gritty of this, okay? So keep me on track for folks who've been going through it. All right, let's get started. So here is the process in a nutshell. Let me make my screen better. Okay, here is the process in a nutshell. And we'll go through each one of these boxes kind of more in depth, but I wanted to give you the big picture view. I'm the type of person, I like that big picture view, and then I like to narrow down to the specifics. And so if you're that type of person, here it is. We are going to talk about, site selection. What are some of the things you want to look for in a site that you're looking to farm? We're going to look at the different land security types. So you may not be, ownership may not be for you, but there are some other options if that is the case. If you are interested in pursuing ownership, how do you identify who owns the property? What is the acquisition process for those different entities that own property in the city? What happens in the closing process? Recording your deed, and then changing the land use to agriculture, from residential to agriculture. And then we'll go through a little bit just like the ongoing reporting and compliance that you'll need to do on your newly purchased process. Okay, so any questions so far? This is what we're going to talk about today. All right. All right, so I mentioned we'll start with site selection. So this is just kind of basic garden development. There's lots of land in the city, right? And when you're looking to develop a farm, what's some of the features that you're looking for? Just to kind of talk at that very first level of like, stick a shovel in there. What does the soil look like? You don't want to purchase some property that all of a sudden you go out there and all you have is rocky clay soil, right? It wouldn't be the worst case scenario, but it definitely isn't the best case scenario. So what does the soil look like? Is it compacted? Are you getting enough sun on the property? A water source is often something that people don't think about to kind of the very end. Obviously, we need some water, and you got to figure out how you're going to get the water to the site. Are you close to your house? Are you going to, do some kind of rain catchment? What is the plan for water? What used to be there is a question you really should ask yourself. So on some of these lots, you'll be surprised. I've seen small liquor stores and gas stations in the middle of a residential neighborhood. What used to be there? Ask the neighbors. You don't want to get into a situation where if you can, you'd like to know the history of what happened on that land, and also how the neighbors are using it today. So I started a community garden over on the Lower East Side, and right in the middle of the garden of the land where we started was this path. Everybody's seen that path, right? That people take. Maybe it's the closest way to get to the school or to the liquor store that's nearby. There's a path right through the garden, and that's something that, as the new gardener there, I needed to be aware. Oh, people are walking through here. Do I want to disrupt that flow? Do I want to take advantage of that flow? Do I want to incorporate that flow into my design? So what are the neighbors doing with it today? Are people parking on it? Are people partying on it? Are people dumping on it? How is the site being used now? When you're thinking about delivering things to your site, you may need a big load of compost. You may need some wood chips. You may need to come through with a truck or tiller. Do you have vehicle access to the site? So this site right here that we're looking at, it looks like you got vehicle access on all sides. That's not the case with every garden. You may not have a way to get on there. There may be some obstruction, something to think about. And then last but not least, on the physical features is do a soil test before you purchase, please. So I've had a number of situations where people rush to purchase the land and don't know what's in the soil, and then they end up having high lead levels, and now you have to figure out what to do with that land that you've purchased and it has high lead levels, right? So when you purchase land, you basically are purchasing land, especially from the land bank. You're purchasing land that is kind of like an old car, a used car. It's as is, right? And so you are not responsible for, in addition to like having the grass cut and all of the other things, you're also responsible for your environmental liability on the lot. And so getting a soil test is always super important. If you didn't know this, Keep Growing Detroit does support with soil testing for your gardens, even if you don't own the property yet. So don't skip that step. All right, so in addition to those things, this is kind of on the site, but from a larger picture, what's happening in the neighborhood is super important right now. It will determine the price of the land. It will determine the competition that you have for that site. And you also should be familiar with the neighbors in the area so that you can make relationships there. Always encouraging you to talk to the neighbors before you come in and purchase. You may live down the street and the neighbor next door has interest in that land and you don't know that. So make sure you talk to your neighbors, make sure you know what's going on in your neighborhood, and make sure you take heed to some of those physical features that we talked about. All right, so there's levels to it, right? There's levels to it. We can come down here to the very beginning. We'll go through each of these kind of individually, but some people decide, I call it guerrilla gardening. Some people decide, I got this empty lot in my neighborhood. I'm just gonna go ahead and start farming it. I don't care who owns it. It's been sitting there for 10 years. I wanna do something with it. That is a thing that people do. And it does leave you somewhat land insecure. So we're gonna go a little bit into that. But there are other options before you get to full ownership that you should know about, and you should know about the risks associated with that, okay? And the benefits associated with each one. So let's just go through these really quickly before we get into the actual acquisition process. Okay, so we talked about the guerrilla gardening. Some pros, very simple, very inexpensive. Cons, and I've seen this happen a number of times. Either the city or another person purchases the land from right underneath your garden, and you have to vacate immediately. So in this model, I would just definitely do a low investment garden or something that I'm not heavily invested in. I have had people call my phone crying because somebody has decided to purchase the land that they're gardening on and they did not know about it. So keep that in mind. If you're gardening and you don't know who owns it, or you decide to garden there without permission or without ownership, may want to consider not making a huge investment in that property, right? Because you could lose that property pretty easily. You could decide that ownership is not the step that you want to take, but you do want to get oral permission from the person who does own the land. I've seen this happen. There's a neighbor who owns a side lot. You get permission from them. You guys gotta do a handshake deal on it. And so this is an option if you're not ready for ownership as well. You can kind of solidify that deal in a written agreement, which is always a good idea. That way, they change their mind tomorrow, you have something in writing that says that you can be there, right? And then kind of a lease agreement. Throughout the years, there has been opportunities that the city has had to lease land. I know of a couple of people who are leasing park and rec land right now, and I'll talk a little bit about that more in depth. But a lease agreement is always better than either, the kind of verbal handshake deal, better than a written agreement, because it sets the duration of time that you're supposed to be there. It sets it gives you a little bit more legal standing for being there if they decide to vacate you all of a sudden. Okay, and then obviously what we're all here to talk about is property ownership. But what I do like to make sure that everybody knows before you step into property ownership, it can be a great thing, a powerful thing, a step towards self-determination. It can be all of those things. I'm a proponent of ownership, but you should also know the responsibilities that come along with it. So when you're an owner, just like you own your home, you pay taxes. You're going to pay taxes on the vacant land that you purchased for your garden, right? If somebody comes along and dumps on your property that you now own, you are technically responsible. The city may support you in that. You may find support in different ways, but you are technically responsible if somebody dumps on your property. You could open yourself up to liability if anyone's injured on your property. I have not heard that ever happening, but you should know that is a possibility. I mentioned the environmental liability. So you get that land, you don't know what's going on with it. You don't know what the soil conditions are. you are now responsible for the knowledge that you have that the land, that the soil has some issues with it, right? Um, and then why do I have title clearance? I'm not sure why I have title clearance on there, but that's something to be aware of always with land. And when you're working with the land bank, they do support with that. And I'll go through that in more detail a little bit. I guess that would be a con, is that you have to kind of make sure that the title is clear. All right. So when you're going through and you're identifying ownership, these are the 3 sites that I like to use. You may have more. The city of Detroit has a new portal. This is within the last couple of years here, where you can see the ownership on a grid. Prior to that, I was using land grid a lot, and I still use them to zero in on the actual parcels. And then I use Wayne County Treasurer to actually identify the taxpayer and the owner of the property. So we'll go through these a little bit more in detail, but I wanted to make sure you knew about these. Let's look at them in detail.
Hey, T, can you pause for 1 second?
Sure.
I was going to try and pull up that link, and the GitHub one wasn't working. Is that the same thing as the parcel viewer?
Yes, the Detroit parcel viewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that link might be a little bit outdated, but I do have some pictures of some of these on here.
Okay, I'll pull up I'll put the parcel viewer link in the chat.
Okay, and just so you guys know, I have a ton of links in this PowerPoint. As you can imagine, there's a ton of documents and things you need to know about. So Keto's going to help me to throw those things in the chat for you so you can have them later. I will also, we will send this PowerPoint out after the class as well, so you'll have it. This is the Wayne County Treasurer's website. So this is where you would go to pay your taxes online. It's also where you can search and see who is paying the taxes for any property in the city, right? And so you can stick your property address in there and figure out who's the owner. You can also, one thing that's kind of a tip on here is you can stick in one number of the street number and the street name, and you can see a full listing of all the owners on that block. And so one thing to note about this site is that the taxpayer is not always the owner. So that happens if an organization owns the lot. You may not always get to the taxpayer. So in that case, you would have to go to the registry of deeds. So once you have identified an owner of your lot by typing that address into the Wayne County Treasurer, right? If it comes up as a person who owns a lot that you want to garden on, double check that person with the Wayne County Registry of Deeds here. That way you'll know that is the actual person that you may want to reach out to strike a deal, either to purchase that land or to garden on that land with their permission, right? And this is the Land Grid website. I like it because it zooms in on the actual parcels and the parcel number of each lot. It also gives you information about the lot size. You can flag all the land bank owned houses or lots in the city. So this is what is purple here. I had flagged it and took a screenshot there. To my left here is all of the top owners in the city. And so I'm going to go through some of these different people who could own the land that you want to buy, and some of the processes with each of them. Anybody remember that time that Hans got to be the third owner in the city?
Oh,
Anybody remember that crazy time? All right. All right, I'm gonna dive deep into the land bank, but just they're the largest entity who holds land in the city, obviously, and they have a few projects, and a few programs that I want you to make sure you know about, and we'll go through the acquisition process of each of them in depth. But to just look at the others for a few seconds, if you go through the Wayne County Treasurer, you type in the address and you see that the planning department owns the land that you want to buy. Your process is an online application, which is at the city website. You're going to submit that. It's likely that the property that you're looking at is commercial property. So what the city did was most of the residential property went to the land bank, and most of the commercial property went to planning and development department. There are a few parcels that you'll find out there that didn't make that transfer. So there's a few residential parcels that are just through the neighborhood that are still owned by planning and development. I found a few. And so usually when you apply and you let them know, usually they help to make that transfer to the land bank. But I just wanted to let you know that is the process for that. If things come up in the chat, just cut me off, I'll just keep going, okay?
Okay.
Another entity that could own the land that you want to garden on is the Wayne County Treasurer. That means that it was in foreclosure at one time. In order to purchase from the Wayne County Treasurer, you have to bid in the Wayne County tax auction, okay? So currently, if you go to the Wayne County's website right now, you can see the list of people who are likely to go in foreclosure right now. The lists that go in foreclosure are available in August. And then in order to bid, you need to register, and it requires a deposit. I think last time I was on there, I think it was like $1,000 something deposit in order to just put a bid out. If you're putting a bid on multiple properties, I think the deposit is like $10,000. So that's for major developers in the city. But that is an entity that still holds land here and there sparse throughout. I have seen property owned by the Wayne County Land Bank. A lot of there are some parcels in Highland Park that are owned by the Wayne County Land Bank. I've seen a few in Detroit. They have a online application. The link is there. You can search their properties both here and outside of the city on their website there. I mentioned that there are a few growers that I know who are growing on park and recreation land. Not every parcel that you see is a residential parcel. Some of them are decommissioned parks, small decommissioned parks. And I know a few growers who have decided to like do some guerrilla gardening on there. And then they go ahead, they've established their garden, they're a couple years in, and they decide to go to ownership. And guess what? It's owned by Parks and Rec. Unfortunately, I've pushed and pushed. There's no really clear path to ownership with Parks and Rec department. So unfortunately, if you're in this situation, they may solidify your deal with a lease agreement. But right now, because that is public land, they're having a hard time figuring out how to sell that land through that department. So here's another reason why you should at least know the owner before you start gardening on it, just in case you get invested. You'll know that you have a path to ownership.
I have
Question.
a quick question.
Yep.
And that is about this recent America Rescue Plan Act. So if cleared by the city of Detroit, 412 million could hit the bank account by July 1st, the city's coffers. And so is that a path? Like if you have an idea for a garden or an existing garden that is on park land, does that fall into one of the categories that was identified by the resolution in the meeting that they did on Tuesday night with the 15 different categories and the 40 different bins of whatever? Is that something that if you have an idea or if you have an existing plan,
Mm-hmm.
and is it part of the neighborhood beautification? Is it worth submitting and saying, look, can this fall under the ARPA deal?
Yeah. That's a really good thought. Ingrid, I know you are full, you are like, you have all the innovative thoughts. I wouldn't have even thought about that. But I think that's a really good thought. I want to see if Sarah has heard anything about that money and how it relates to whether it's parkland or as it relates to gardening in general. Have you heard anything about that? I did see that there was some money allocated for block clubs and things like that. Sarah, you're at the city
Yeah,
level.
I have seen kind of those presentations, but I think that they're too much in like the planning phase to say anything about them now. I think
Mhm,
once they kind of figure out where the money's going to be allocated, then it's going to start filtering down into like, okay, this program, that program, this department, that department. But
mhm,
I what I think is that it'll be primarily, or at least part of that will be to help block clubs and neighborhood organizations purchase land. I think that'll be primarily DLBA or DLBA land. I don't think that it'll be Parks and Rec land at any. I don't think that's going to change much. But Parks and Rec does have some of those, you know, like leasing and adopt a park and options and things like that. So, you know, it's possible that some funding will be like allocated to improve neighborhood parks, but just not sure if that's going to be like as a grant for someone to do that or just straight to the park so it can improvement. Probably all of those different programs will exist within ARPA.
mhm. Yeah, good question, Ingrid. I like what you're thinking there. And you know, kind of a funny sidebar, if you don't know, Parks and Rec, the department, they used to house all of the gardening programs in the city. So the Farm a Lot program was housed under Parks and Rec. And even prior to that, the Victory Gardens here in Detroit. So the gardening program, similar to Garden Research Program, used to be housed and crouched right in the city, city services. So anyway, it's a funny sidebar. Um, and then we talked a little bit. If you go on the Wayne County Treasurer and you type in the address of the lot that you want, and you come up and it comes up to be a private owner, right? What do you do then? I mean, I mentioned go to the Registry of Deeds, make sure they are the actual owner, that they're not representing an organization or something like that. Um, there is this the Laura search database for organizations. Once you identify the actual owner, the only thing you can really do is contact that person and hope that you get a response and try to negotiate a deal with that person. If you do go that route, I do suggest that you get legal advice on that. Um, so let's dive into the land bank. Sarah, this is going to feel real funny for you because I'm going to be talking about your area of expertise here. So please jump in if I say anything wrong. Okay.
You got it, Tiva. Sure, absolutely.
All right. So the DLBA has a couple of programs, a number of which this is probably their most famous program that you may have heard of, and I'll give you some of them here. So the side lot program, everybody's heard of the side lot program. And it is true, you can purchase land in the city for $100 as long as your property that you own and that you live in touches that property. So you see the parcels all around there. In order to figure that out, you need to go to the DLBA website and enter in, there's a side lot tab. You need to enter in your address to see if there are any qualifying side lots next to you. If the side lot that you thought was a side lot is not listed on their website, I would suggest you go through the projects portal, which I'll talk a little bit more about, which Sarah is works for. But just because it's not on the website, I want you to know that doesn't mean that it's not available, and doesn't mean that the land bank doesn't own it. There is another way to go, but most of them are housed on the website. In July, those side lots will begin to graduate to what they're calling neighborhood lots, which is a new program. And so that means that anyone around within 500 feet, I'm gonna talk about neighborhood lots on the next slide, but just keep that in mind. If you have a side lot, now is the time to go ahead and purchase it, because Those are going to graduate so that more people would have access to purchase those first. One thing to mention is that side lots do not require a plot plan. We'll get into what a plot plan is in a few slides. Nor do they have like this kind of compliance period where the land bank can take your parcel back if you don't meet your requirements. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but just know this is the easiest path. If you have a side lot, this is the easiest path to ownership. All right, next in their program suite is the neighborhood lots, which just launched last August, I believe. In order to apply for the neighborhood lots, it's similar to the side lots, but the adjacency is expanded to 500 feet from your house. So you don't have to be touching it, you have to be within 500 feet of your house. You do have to own and occupy the house that you live in, and you have to actually have a PRE for that, which is a principal residence exemption. You have to be current on all your property taxes, of course, and it does require an endorsement from a community partner or from a district manager. They have to have a couple of people who can endorse that. Neighborhood lots are $250 each, and you can buy up to 2 of them. In order to see if you have any neighborhood lots around you, you need to, again, go to the DLBA website, enter in your address under neighborhood lots, and you'll see some of them start to populate. If you think that you have a lot in your neighborhood that you think should be a neighborhood lot, you do have another avenue. So if you don't see it, again, we have another avenue I'll talk about on the next slide. One thing to keep in mind is that the neighborhood lots have a 3-year compliance period. So you've purchased that lot, you stop mowing the grass, somebody dumps on it, you're not doing your due diligence as a landowner to keep it clean. This is becoming a blight situation. After a warning from the DLBA, they can revoke the deed from you. They retain some interest in the land, and they can revoke the deed from you. And this is to keep folks from squatting on land, folks who don't even live here from taking land and not doing anything with it. And so you do have that 3-year compliance period for neighborhood lots. All right, so the next kind of way to purchase land. So you got these easy programs, you got side lot programs, you got neighborhood lot programs. If your land doesn't fall in those 2 categories, maybe it's down the block, maybe you didn't find it in the on the website, you want to go to the projects portal. So before you apply for a project, first thing I say is gather your paperwork before you apply. You'll need to understand kind of your mission and what you want to do with the land, because they'll ask you some questions like that in the application. But you'll need a plot plan. We're going to talk about that on the next page a little bit more in depth. You need a budget. We'll talk a little bit about that, and you're going to need proof of funds. So start to gather that paperwork before you even apply. You're going to think through your offer price. So this is not one of the easy programs where you're going to get $100 lot. You're not going to get a $250 lot. These prices are based on comparable land sales in the area, so they can range widely. If you're in an area that hasn't seen a lot of development, they're at the lower end, 25 cents a square foot. Sorry. If you're in Jefferson Chalmers or one of these areas that's getting a lot of development, you're going to be more in the 3, 4, 5 and up range in terms of the square footage. So kind of understand where you are. That was back to that side in terms of site selection. Where you are in the city will also determine like the price for these lots, right? So we could be looking at a $700 lot. We could be looking at a $9,000 lot. Depends on where you live and what the property value is doing in your area. Okay. So when you apply in the projects portal, you're going to need plot plan, budget, proof of funds. You're also going to need an offer price. When you consider your offer price, consider what the land sale is selling for in your area. Make sense? Here's the link for the property application. Here's one that I really want to make sure that people have. If you can put that in the chat for me, Keto. Ingrid, you had your hand raised, or were there questions? Should I take a quick
One,
pause?
one question really quick is that you said to find out like what land is going for in the neighborhood to figure out what your offer price might be. Is
Mhm.
there a resource, is there a link that I can hit to find out what vacant land is selling for right now so I know better what my offer price should be?
Mm. You know, I am not aware of one. And what I typically do, because Sarah's my friend, I typically reach out and say, Sarah, what would this go for? But I also I'm from Detroit. I kind of know those areas that are a little more higher end, so you can kind of guess on that level. But I'm gonna ask Sarah that question. Is there somewhere to see those comparable land sales and like some kind of registry or map, Sarah, that you
Actually,
know about?
Zillow is a good one. Just looking at sold, just change the settings so that you're looking at sold vacant lots, not at houses and whatnot, or those kinds of real estates. That's a good way to look.
Okay, awesome. All right. Was there another question before we keep going?
Nope.
All
Oh,
right.
wait. Oh, yes, wait, yes. Hold on. Hypothetic, I live near a vacant lot owned by the land bank. For 15 years. I've been cutting the grass. I've had a garden on it for the past 3 years. Do I have any squatters' rights?
So that is something that I've been advocating for, is like, can we quantify the amount of work that people have put into land and then take that off of the price? So that is like a dream of mine. I know Sarah has been working on like some blight adjustments. That might be a question for Sarah though. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, we try not to sell land that's actively in use. So if you are the person who is using that land and you submit an application, you would be a good purchaser for that land. But having said that, it does still depend on, where exactly that land is and what the status is with the city. So it would still have to be reviewed by the city.
Hmm. And I'll also point to an example with Oakland Avenue. They were maintaining the land for 10 years and kept good records of like how they had mowed the lots and all of the things that you're talking about. And they actually did get a better deal because of that. So, I would say, document what you're doing and see where it goes. And that's definitely something I'm advocating for on my side of pushing things. So I'll keep going. So there's the property application,
Oh,
I think.
sorry, T, one more. Can I do
Uh-huh.
one
Yeah.
more? When searching for lots on the DLBA website, on the neighborhood lot search area or side lot search area, you must only type in your house number and street name. Oh, it's more of a note. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Not include street, avenue, or boulevard. If you include that, nothing will come up. So for example, 1234 Woodward will work. 1234 Woodward Avenue will not work.
All right.
For
Was
those
that
who are
Kate?
in the chat, anyways.
Thank you for that. Was that KT?
Yep.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's just, it sounded like you, KT. Thank you for that. And KT, I know you've been doing a lot of work on this. So if you want to come off of mute, if I'm saying anything or you want to add something, please do, because we want to get all the knowledge in front of the people, right? So, so I'll say all this also. Once you put that application in, just be persistent and understand that it even says it right there on the website. The process can take, up to 4 months. And I'm finding it can take, I'm seeing people that haven't gotten any information, in up to 4 months. They may have had some communication, but definitely not a purchase agreement for maybe 8 months. So be persistent. Don't give up. Don't just because you're not getting communication or, make sure you're checking in. Maybe you didn't get the communication they sent. Make sure you're checking in on the process and you're an active participant in moving your purchase through, if that makes sense. So then if you are approved internally, so the DOBA will look at your property application. If it's improved internally, you'll receive a purchase agreement from them. Make sure you read it. I've even, like with the Black Farmer Land Fund folks, I've actually set them up with a lawyer on retainer so they can look at the document with the lawyer so they can really understand what they're signing on for, because in there recently, and there may be some flexibility in this, but recently they're requiring a change of use in the purchase agreement. There's also your timeline for when you're reporting to them. I'll talk about that in the next couple bullets, but there's a lot of information in there. Make sure you read that through really good and you understand it. If you don't understand it, talk to your person at the DLBA and ask questions. You'll sign the purchase agreement, and then you'll remit earnest deposit, which is usually around $500 is what I'm seeing. That signed agreement then goes to the board, and your project manager at the DLBA will put it in front of the board for final approval. If you get that final approval, then you're going to the closing process. You'll pay the remaining money. Just a point of note. It's so funny, Keto. I was like updating these slides, and I have slides on land purchasing from like 2-3 years ago when we were doing it with Urban Roots, right? And I put T's dream is that all urban ag projects would get a discount. And guess what I put on this one? Ag projects get a 20% discount. Anyway, that's something that is actually a thing that's happening now. So that's awesome. And so if you on the application, if you say that you're purchasing land for agriculture, typically you're going to be offered a 20% discount just because you're doing agriculture in the city. So that's awesome. All right. And then the compliance period that you keep hearing me talk about is that, like I mentioned, the land bank will hold certain interest in your property so that if you're not doing the things you said you're going to do with it, they can reconvey that deed and they can take it back. Okay, so that feels very punitive, but we actually want that measure in place because we don't want people to purchase land from who knows where and not do anything with it, right? But then we have to also be in the same respect. So we can't purchase land and not do the things we said we were going to do or not keep it up. They want to know, they want you to report to them on a schedule of your timeline. So you're going to establish a timeline of when you're going to establish this garden. They want to hear from you. So they'll have a schedule of when they want to hear from you. They want to hear from you every couple months. Drop a picture to them, drop a line, and communicate if something's going on. If it's winter, I couldn't establish it, just communicate that, to your folks at the land bank. I'll pause there before I keep going. And I saw a couple things in the chat. Are we good?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure if this one got answered because it's a little bit beyond my lingo. Question: when I applied for a lot that is next to an abandoned house, I was told I could purchase it. What do I do at this point? So a lot that's next to abandoned house. Rachel, if you want to come off mute and chime in on this.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Rachel.
Hi, how you doing?
All right.
So I had seen a lot I was next in house for 2 abandoned, and I had put in an application for it for the lot. But I was told since it was next to an abandoned house that I couldn't purchase it because my house wasn't next to it or adjacent to it. So I was trying to figure out what was the next route for me to go by purchasing the spot to move my garden to.
Mm-hmm. You put a property application in?
Yes, the land bank for the lot that's across the street from the garden that I currently have.
Okay. Will you do me a favor and send me the confirmation number, and I'll talk with Sarah about it and see if she could figure out any information. My email is at the end of this is tee@keepgrowingdetroit.org. And so when you fill out your application, you should get a confirmation number. If you have that number.
I can see you everything that they sent to me.
Okay, yeah, let's see what's going on. Yeah,
And Sarah's saying you could, Sarah put her email in the chat as well.
Oh.
She, you can also email her directly.
Thank you, Sarah. I didn't want to
Okay.
bombard you if you didn't want that. All right.
Okay, and then a few other
I'm
questions.
sorry.
What are other discounts that folks can get? And then Sarah said adjacency for owning property that is touching about, it gets a 20% discount. Environmental remediation. Okay, I'm not sure if there's anything that needs to be added to that, but people can read
Okay.
on that. And then
You know, for I think with properties with the structure on them, I think you can get an educator discount. I had that on here, but I don't think it applies to vacant land. So, but just I think there's a 50% educator discount, but the thing, and then you get a discount for being a community partner. But I don't think they can stack discounts. So it's either you get the ag or you get the community partner or you get the educator. I don't think you can put them together and get 70% off.
Yeah, it's a little bit, there are certain discounts you can combine and certain discounts you can't.
Okay.
For the land, I would say it's, you're most likely buying it through the projects program. And so most likely you can stack the discounts up to 40%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then to clarify, Ruth asked, Asmar Ruth said, does that mean you will only pay under the ag projects, does that mean that you will only pay 80% of the offer price?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's it for now.
All right. So I mentioned that before you apply to gather your paperwork, and I think we may do some some workshops on this, because this is a stickler for some people. Some people this is pretty straightforward, and some people are like, what? So so it's always good to kind of look at this document. The city, if you can put this in the chat, Keto, the city put together this plot plan guide, because so people would know what they're expecting. And so you should have this. I actually have this pinned on my taskbar because I send it out so many times. But this is a full booklet of how to create a plot plan and some of the things that you need to think about. So read the booklet. Some of the notes that I usually tell people, it can be hand drawn. It can be a pretty crude hand drawing of your property. So don't feel like you have to go to CAD and get a, you don't have to get fancy with it. Make sure you have all the measurements for your land that you want to purchase. You can get those off of LandGrid. You can get those off of Google Maps. It has a measurement tool. You can actually go out there with a wheel and figure out the measurements. Identify all the existing features. So if there's trees, if there's a fence line, make sure you plot those in first, and then think of all the things that you want to add to your property. And so here is where I just, I caution people to stay conservative. I know that when, I think that gardeners are creative and people, and they're loving. Sometimes they want to put a swimming pool, they want to put a basketball court, they want to do this and this and this. And unless you have the funds to do that within the next year or two, secure it in your bank. Let's wait on the swimming pool. Let's get through the compliance period and just do the things that you think that you can do within the next year or two. So put the things on there that you think you can actually fulfill within your compliance period, because this is what you're going to be reporting on. So if you say you want to do 5 raised beds, you want to maintain the grass, and you want to add a water catchment system, when you'll add those things on your plot plan, you'll add those things in your budget, and then the land bank is going to want to see proof of funds that you have that in the bank to be able to sustain that project. Does that make sense? So they want to make sure, and again, this is a safeguard that they've instilled to make sure that people aren't buying a bunch of land in Detroit and not able to do the things that they're saying they're going to do. So it's actually a good safeguard, but But we have to, we just have to know how to work with it, right? And so if you're doing multiple lots, you can display them all on one plot plan. And then make sure you have, make sure you label it with your name, your street address, your garden name. Make sure you have some of those basic things that are in the ordinance. We did an ordinance webinar a few months ago. That's on our YouTube page. But some of those basic things, like making sure that your growing area is 5 feet from the sidewalk, making sure your compost bin is the appropriate distance from the next house. All of those things are laid out in this plot plan. Some of those basic things you should know about the ordinance. They want to know that you know those things, and just so that you're respectful of your neighbors. So that's that. If you need any support with that plot plan, you want to run it by me or anything like that, we can definitely talk about that. So here's a basic budget you'll want to compile. I mentioned you want to compile your plot. There's 3 things you want before you do the application. You want your plot plan, your budget, and you want your proof of funds. So here's a basic budget. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't have to be a whole lot of money. You can even indicate that you're going to get some things in kind. So you plan to get a couple raised beds from Keep Growing Detroit, and you're going to purchase 4 of them. Just throw the 4 that you're going to purchase. You know that your church has a grant money for a water catchment system. You have a letter from the church that says they're going to pay for it. Keep it in there and say it's 0, and then show DLBA the grant letter as proof of funds for that part of your budget. Okay. And then just a note, again, anything on this budget, you'll have to show a bank statement saying for this budget, you have $600, almost $700 in the bank to take care of this project, right? So far, so good, making sense.
Yep.
Okay, there's one more pathway to purchasing with the land bank that you should know about. So we had the side lot program, we had the neighborhood lot program, we have the projects portal. There's one more that is pretty common for gardeners, which is properties that they are actually marketing to gardeners. So if you go on their website, here's the link. There are certain properties that they have identified that they think are great ideas for gardeners, particularly because there's, maybe 3, 4, 5 parcels together. Some of them have, a house on the property that would be good for, your dwelling, or for wash pack, or for a community house. So these are parcels that they have identified that they're actually marketing to land-based projects. And so for these, if you see them on the website, they're all listed there. You want to, again, gather your paperwork, and you want to create a project proposal. The guidelines for the project proposal are on the website. Here's the link. Okay. And you're going to work directly with the real estate company. There's no application to the land bank. You won't be working with sweet, nice Sarah. You're going to be working directly with the real estate company. All right. Any questions on that? Anything that I missed, Sarah or KT? With land bank property?
I think you did a great job, T. Thank you.
All right. Woo, that was a high honor. Land bank person saying I did a great job. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about some of the snags in the road that I've seen with land bank purchases, so you are aware. Sometimes people get frustrated with the process, but there are true snags that come up within the city. There's true snags that come up with gardeners. So I want to talk about some of the snags on the road that I've seen. That way you'll just kind of know why you're getting stuck, right? So sometimes you go in there, you find the address, you're stoked about this property, you apply for it, and they come back and they say there's a lien on the property. So the land bank is actually borrowing money to maybe demolish a home that was on that lot, and then there's a lien on the property. But the good thing about that is that that those liens usually expire within a year. or two, there's a date that usually is associated when the lien expires. So my advice there, wait it out, wait till the lien expires. But that is something where sometimes people get stuck. They don't know what to do. Just wait it out and don't forget, put that date in your calendar or whatever you have to do, and circle back with your project manager and say, hey, the lien is expired. Can we keep going with this purchase? Sometimes what I've seen is, and this happened to a couple of the farmers in the fund, is you apply for a lot, maybe it's down the street. And one thing that the DLBA does that is super good is they give the adjacent neighbors notification that somebody wants to purchase that land and that they have the first right of refusal, right? And so, and by adjacent neighbors, I mean, maybe similar to the case that you have, Rachel. Maybe it's not an abandoned house. There's somebody that lives in that house and they actually have the first right of refusal for the land that's right next to them, which is really, really cool. But for you, it means that now you have to wait for the land bank to contact the neighbors and make sure they don't want to own it first. And in some cases they say, actually, I do want to own it. And then you're back to square zero, finding another lot to purchase. Okay. But that is a case that happens. You found a lot that you like, you looking on Land Grid and you recognize that it is commercially zoned. I try to stay clear of commercially zoned and I advise people to stay clear, but this is totally up to you and depending on the project that you have. If you're attached to a commercially zoned lot, I try to stay clear of it for a number of reasons. One is that it requires a special land hearing to use it as ag, which requires additional time. That means they have to, the city has to contact all the neighbors in your area, have a meeting with them, make sure that everybody in your area is okay with this project going forward. That means that you have to pay for that to happen. It's about $1,000. So that takes about a year extra in your project planning timeline. Another reason I try to steer clear of commercially zoned projects, though, is because a lot of times there were, dry cleaning companies or gas stations. If it's commercial, that means it was a business at one point in time. If it's vacant now, it could have been a business. That means that just increases the likelihood that there's something going on with that soil. And so if you're attached to a commercially zoned property, like let's talk about your pros and cons and how to safely move forward with that lot. Another snag that you might run into is that something in your plot plan requires special permission or you don't have proof of funds for the concept. So I mentioned that stay conservative in your plot plan. If you, Sarah, close your ears, but if you want to do a swimming pool, tell them about it later. We can talk to BC about that later, but let's get through the purchasing process. And then you may, like you may have put, here's a common example. You put 9 fruit trees. We were just talking about this afternoon. You put 9 fruit trees in your lot. You don't know it, but 9 fruit trees will trigger a special use hearing because now they're considering that an orchard. You have a hoop house on your plot plan, but you don't have the grant fund letter that says that they're going to pay for your hoop house. So all of those things are hiccups that kind of slow up the process. So just to let you know, there are some of the things that could happen, right? Another thing that happens often is people get stuck in their paperwork gathering. So they've applied for something, the land bank says, I need a plot plan. And then the gardener kind of get stuck. The inertia has died. They don't know how to do the plot plan. Maybe they don't know how to do a budget, or they just something happens. So stay on top of your work. I'm here to support you in that process if you'd like. I've seen people miss the communication that the DLBA has. So stay on top of your emails. Make sure nothing is going to spam. If it's been a long time that you've heard from the DLBA, reach out to them. Because maybe they've sent you something and you didn't get it or something like that. Every once in a while, you run into title issues. So something you should know about it is that, and we all know, title insurance when you get property, but same thing with a vacant lot. The DLBA does do a preliminary search to see if there's anything that looks weird in the chain of custody. If they see something that looks weird, that means that there may be a dispute on the title. They will suggest that you get title insurance. It's not a huge snag, but just something you should know about as you're going through this process. And they also recommend a few title insurance companies that you can go through. And then I want to show you this map, because this is a thing that happens a lot, unfortunately, is that you're in a project hold area or a land review area. So on the next slide, I have that map here.
Before you go on, T, there's a few questions.
All right.
My idea project requires commercial zoning, indoor hydro aquaponics. Is the land bank route not a good option because of so many snags?
No, if you're doing an indoor growing and you're preparing to have a building in that, I think commercial is a great option, and that means that you probably have the funding to go through a special use hearing and the time to go through that. And so I would connect you if you're trying to do that. And when you're ready, I would connect you with somebody from the Land Banks projects team so that they're aware of your project and they can help you navigate those snags. So either reach out to Sarah or myself to kind of talk your project through and make sure your zoning is right and all of that.
Does insurance need to be placed on land, and is it necessary for budget?
There's a couple different kind of insurance. If you're talking about like liability insurance, that's kind of at your risk. And so I not everybody does liability insurance. If you plan to have like a lot of people on your land and it may be a good idea, I would put it in the budget. You also can get like event insurance for liability. If you are a LLC, that kind of protects you a little bit more from those type of issues. But yeah, that's kind of your call. Title insurance is there's some amount of risk, but like I said, the DLBA does the preliminary search, and so they'll let you know if there's some risk and if they think you should get title insurance. And then even that needs to be weighed out. Like if you're buying $100 side lot, and the likelihood that somebody's going to come back and say that they have some kind of holding on that land or right to that land is pretty low. You may want to weigh out, hey, I paid $100 for this lot. Do I want to pay $300 for title insurance? So because the risk is low and what I'm going to lose is low. So I hope that helps with that question. Yeah. So this map is on the city website and on the land bank website. It lists the one thing, several years ago when people were trying to purchase land, they would get stuck in the DLBA system, and then they would come out maybe 5-6 months later and they were in a project hold area, right? And I was like, where are these mysterious like project hold maps, right? Here it is. I think that they're doing a better job of communicating that there are certain areas in the city that are earmarked for certain things, right? There's a lot of vacant land in the city, right? But the city planners do have an inherent right to like plan out how things are going to be used, how the land is going to be used in the city. And so there's certain areas you'll see that that some of these programs don't apply for. So if you get a no, it could be because of this. Your project manager at the DLBA should explain that to you, but this is something you can kind of be aware of. If you're in a project hold area or a project coordination area, it may be harder for you to purchase land there. Okay.
KT, raise your hand. Did you want to say, KT?
I just wanted to add to this. If you know who has a hold on the land, and you approach them and try and get a letter of support for the sale, that will allow that sale to happen. In my experience helping neighbors around here, we've had to get letters of support from the Eastern Market and letters of support from Recovery Park back in the day too. So it's been helpful, but when you get denied, you're not told who actually owns the land. I don't think that the land bank is going to tell you who has the hold on it, rather. But if you do know, you can approach them with your project proposal and get that letter of support from them, and that'll allow the sale to go through in most cases.
Really good info. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay.
So before you go on, but Mike, I have a question on that last slide.
Yeah. Oh, I think I got to exit to go back. Sorry, I'll go back.
Can you, is there, so do you know what these, like inclusive housing opportunity areas, jobs and amenity development areas, like, do you know what does that mean?
A little bit. Like inclusive housing, I think is like, so if you look at it, that's like Green Acres, Palmer Park, downtown. That's like the land value is so high that they're not gonna like, you know, they're like kind of, if the land value is over a certain amount, they're not selling it for urban ag, basically. They're not gonna sell you something in the middle of downtown for urban ag, basically. You'd have to really go through some hoops. And then jobs and amenities, Sarah may answer that. I think that's where they're doing some like industrial stuff, projects that they're thinking through. Sarah, do you know that? Are you still on the line?
Yes, so the more detailed descriptions are in the vacant land policy. I'm throwing, which are on the website. So in the actual document, it kind of describes a little bit more. Inclusive housing opportunities areas are areas where the house of costing, the square foot cost of housing is more than $100 a square foot. So there's like areas where like the land that is available, which is usually not that much, is kind of earmarked for affordable housing. So if, so that's the inclusive housing opportunity area. Jobs and amenity development area are areas where the city owns, or at least like more than 30% of the land in the area is publicly owned. And so contiguous land sites are being identified for like, for projects basically. So, yep, jobs and amenity areas are meant to keep public ownership a little bit more contiguous for projects.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, so after whether you've gone through planning department, whether you've gone through a private owner, whether you've gone through Wayne County tax treasurer office, whoever you got your deed from, the land bank, you need to go through the step of recording that deed. So just like you would if you purchase land, here's the information on where to record the deed. There's a small cost involved in recording the deed. It's not too much, but I just wanted to mention that as a step, because in the next step, which is changing the land use, you'll need you'll likely need a recorded deed to go through this process. So let's talk about this. So right now, if you purchase land, like we mentioned, it's either zoned for residential or is zoned for commercial or zoned for industry. If you are doing a garden, you'll need to change it to agriculture. Not a lot of people have gone through this process, but honestly, I think the city is getting to the point where they're a lot more in tune with these projects, and they want to see what's going on with the land, and they want to see how the land is being used. And so they are going in the direction of requiring requiring of change of use. I have already heard of people getting a few tickets for not having it. And so it's something that we have been advocating for a little while. And we just want to make sure you know about it and know the process. And we even have some supports in place to get you through this process. But change of use happens with the Building Safety, Engineering, and Environmental Department. So BSEED. That is the department that you go through to change your use. It is it's actually a building permit form. So it's a little bit confusing, but that is the form that you use to change the use. You can do that online now, or you can do a paper copy. The cost is $150. When you change the use, it does give you more protection from the urban ag ordinance, just so you know, and it makes sure that you're in compliance with your purchase agreement. I mentioned that that's a clause that they're putting in the purchase agreement now, is that you change the use within like 90 days or something like that. So this is a process that we're going to have to become more familiar with and how to do, particularly if you're doing some large infrastructure things like keto, working on these hoop houses with people and the water catchment systems. If you're starting to make large infrastructure things going on your property, this is something you really need to be aware of and start to think through how to do. So before you think about going through the change of use process, you should combine your lots, because it'll be $150 per lot that you have unless you combine them first. It's recommended in their tutorials that you combine them first. You do the lot combination with the tax assessor's office. And so that's a parcel revision form. The link is there. It's a pretty simple document. I just did a few for some people, but it'll change the legal name of your property from 123 Apple Lane and you have multiple properties, and it puts them all under one address, and it also puts them all under one tax bill. And that also means when you go to do the change of use, you only have to do it one time for one property. Okay, so if that makes sense. In order to go through that parcel revision, you'll need that recorded deed, or you'll need a stamped property transfer affidavit from the land bank. In some cases, you may need a 50-50 waiver. We can talk about that on a case-by-case basis. If you purchase through the side lot program, you do not need to change the use, because your house is the principal use, and your side lot is a accessory use. So the building permit, Keep Growing Detroit created this a couple years ago. They have since done this online system since COVID. The questions are the same. So this Keto, this document is linkable. So if you want to click it and put that document in the chat for folks. This shows you really how to do it. You'll need that plot plan, the same plot plan that you use to apply for the program. You'll need that for your change of use. And you'll just indicate on your change of use paperwork that it really just says other on there. And so you'll change the use in that way. You can follow these instructions. But what I wanted to say before we end the call is that the city recognized that folks aren't going through this process of changing the use. And before they kind of come down on folks and start doing tickets on more of a regular basis, they want to encourage people to actually go through the right process. And so we are supporting them in that. We have a small treasury of money to support people through this process. So we can support about 30 change of use permits with the money that we have. That means that KGD will pay for it if you go through the process. And so if you're interested in that, there's a Google form just so I can collect your name and how to contact you and the parcels that you're working with. So if you're ready for that next step and you want KGD to pay for it, please fill out that form. If you know people who are doing, especially I want to prioritize people who just purchased their land, because they're adding that clause in there. I want to prioritize people who have large infrastructure investments, such as hoop houses and the rain catchment systems. I also want to prioritize low income people. Those are the people I'm prioritizing. But if you know, fill it out, and I just want you to let you know who we're prioritizing for those 30 slots that we have. Either which way, we are here to help you through that process, whether it's me, myself, or whether I connect you with somebody from the land-based projects team who can really work with you to get support with this process. So here you have my email, you have my Calendly. If you want to book me for 30 minutes, we can talk about it. And then the support for change of use. And then wanted to tell you a little bit about the Black Farmer Fund, which is the application is launching July 5th. It prioritizes money to Black farmers in the city, seeing that there was a disparity in the purchases from white farmers to Black farmers. We wanted to really put some support behind Black farmers to actually purchase their land. And so Erin, who I introduced you to earlier, she's a co-founder along with Keyword Detroit and Oakland Ave. And so that application will drop July 5th. If you're having problems purchasing your land, that fund can support you there. So that being said, I'm gonna stop talking, and if there's any questions that's come up, but I know that's a lot of information.
Hold on. Okay. Does combining the lots increase taxes?
You know, thank you for that question. I did ask the assessor's office that directly because I was concerned about that, particularly if you combine it with a house. And I didn't know if it would open up the taxable value on your house. They said no. However, in the case that they're wrong, I'm gonna ask a couple other people just to make sure, because I would hate for that to happen on my house. And I because you tried to do the right thing. So what
it seems like it would be, I mean, it's based on the assessed value, so wouldn't that change because it's more area? I don't know.
Yeah, I asked that question directly to someone from the tax assessor's office, and they said no. But I also have that same worry, Keto. So what you could do is not necessarily combine it with your house. You could just, if you have like 2 or 3 lots that you're combining, you can just do it without your house. So if that makes sense. And it was just assessed if it's land that you just bought within the last, you know, it was just assessed. And so it shouldn't change like the taxable value on the land itself. It's just, my concern is if you combine it with a house and then it opens that can of worms. So.
Okay. Can you change, Darius, you might need to clarify this one. Can you change real property to agricultural land use? Can you clarify what you mean by that? Do you know what
I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Unless there was something more to that, Darius. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we change real estate to agricultural property?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's
That's the whole progress. I mean, the whole process with the $150 application and everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's.
Yep. Can I'm gonna put another dream out there while you're looking through the chat. What if we were to get agriculture land taxed at the state agriculture rate? I think it would be a little less. Anyway, that's that's a dream that I have. I'm put it out there because last time I put it out there and it happened. So.
There was Tiffany had a question about one of the links not working right. Tiffany, do you know which one? I'm sorry, I know you're you put the actual language, but I'm not sure which one that was for. Let me just click on it really quick and see what happens. Oh, here, let me do this. Oh, that works for me. That's for the ELAPs. And let me maybe let me do it again. I think I fixed it. Let me just no, that's right. It should be right, Tiffany. I'm not sure what went wrong for you.
If you Google, is that the online, is that the ELAP system?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you Google it, you could probably get to it. Google BC online permitting. Yep. Well,
Hey.
that was a lot. That was a lot. Thank you
Oh
for
my God.
sitting through that. It's, you know what? The process used to be harder. I feel like we're, you know, I think we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
And in the city. And yeah, I think we're all at least on the same page about making it an easier process for gardeners. And so we'll continue to, you know, give you updates. And again, you know, my email is here, my Calendly is here. If you just want to talk it through like one-on-one, happy to do that with folks. Because I know it's a lot, and I don't want that to be a barrier for anybody. I'm a strong proponent of land ownership, and so we don't want that to be a barrier for anybody. So let's talk about it. And I don't think the city does either. I think, you know, I think it's just it's kind of a new thing for cities to be thinking about land in this way. So a lot of new things to think through.
Yeah. And just to reiterate for everybody, anybody who came in late, that the slides are going to be available, and we will share those with everybody here in the room today. And the video from today will be up on our YouTube channel. So there's all those resources you can go back and reference after the fact. Okay. Well, does anybody else have any questions, thoughts, comments, leanings? Right on. That was a lot to process. I'm sure you're just taking it in still.
Yes, like I said, reach out. And then Sarah threw her email in the chat, like, yeah, I'll just put it out there that like we are at this pivotal time in Detroit. I've been to Philly, I've been to New York, there's nobody who has land prices at this purchase price. And I want to make sure that Detroiters who've been here, been through the struggle, stayed here through the struggle, have access to land, and not just like big wig developers, as that's starting to increase. So I'll tell you, my friend was just looking at some land in Philly and priced out a lot, and it started at $12,000 just walking the door. So that's where we're headed as a city, but we have this little window of opportunity to get in there and make sure the traders get in there and kind of re-envision what our city looks like. And I would love for there to be some nice healthy farms on some of this land. So yeah, so reach out. And should we do the corny gift thing and say thanks so much for joining, Sarah, and thanks so much for joining, KT. Those are my experts in the room, and Aaron representing the Black Farmer Land Fund. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. Chet, I didn't even see you on there, but Chet is a board member at KGD. So thanks so much for joining us, Chet. As always, supporting us. I saw the question July 5th is for the Black Farmer Fund application comes out. Yep. You want to do the corny get off the thing and say goodbye, bye. That's my favorite part. Because everybody's quiet. It's like bye. See you later. Bye, darling.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Chet. Bye, Rachel. Bye, Shaki. Bye, Miss Charlotte.
Later.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Joy. I see you on here. Hey, Asmara, I see you.
Thank you so much.
All right, AT, I'll make sure this stuff gets shared and all that.
Okay, thanks so much, Sarah. I appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.